All right, Sal, we're live, man. How you doing this morning?
Good, good.
That's good. We got a good topic to talk about today. Anthony
Yeah,
Casso, man. So, remember we were talking about on our last live that we wanted to cover more murders and different other kind of crimes and criminal activities. And so
right.
this was one of the guys that I had read about and did a lot of research. And you were on the street the same time he was. So I figured, this would be a really good episode. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on, covering this guy?
Well, Cataldo, the guy I worked with, because of our relationship and the secretness of doing drugs, he kept me away from a lot of guys. But he knew Casto and his friend Jack Donnelly. They were involved. They didn't. They were very careful about how they let out information of things they had done. But Cataldo and Donnelly knew about his bypass gang. I mean, they made a connection with alarm companies, whether it was ADT, Homes in those days, and to dismantle, alarm systems. A couple of burglars I knew what they did was they went and got the actual equipment that was put into a building, for security, and they took it home and they analyzed it and they learned how to dismantle that equipment so they could dismantle the alarm system on a bank, and then they would have to tunnel down. And I think Casso was in charge of two or three different groups. They were gangs, and it was very quiet because in those days, the 70s, banks didn't want people to know that they were insecure. And God only knows what people lost in those safe deposit box. Many legal and probably a lot of illegal people had boxes. Who knows how many fortunes were lost in that? But Castle was involved in that. He was involved in all kinds of crimes, whether it was hijacking, drugs. I mean, he claimed that he sold drugs to Gravano. Maybe he
Yeah.
did, maybe he
Gene,
didn't.
a
There's
lot of the
no
people.
telling. Yeah, there's no telling how many lies he committed out there beside all the murders he was involved in.
Yeah, and he, like I said, we're going to be doing a two-part series on this guy. So for the people listening in, you can expect to see next Saturday and the following Saturday, we're going to do cover his early life and his upbringing in the mob, and then part two will be covering, his downfall. But today we're also going to do some more information because, I read his the whole book that he had made about him, Confessions of a Mafia Boss, and there's a lot of stuff that's said in there, and you guys can decide whether you believe his word or if you don't, but a lot of the information came from him and his co-author that had written the book. So I'm sure the co-author was able to find documents and stuff as well and try to do his best with covering the guy's story. But it's like I said, it's from his point of view, Sal. So it's like
Right, right. And people got to understand that I did a book that got published in '89. It was basically about my family and the witness protection program, how we got into it, and my sons were athletes, and how the government hit us in Texas and all. And about 99% of the stuff that I did, or maybe a little bit less, I shared with that author, a guy named Nick Taylor. And people that listen have to understand, as a criminal, you're not always going to share everything you did. There's things that you weren't happy about. There's things that you weren't proud about. Only a total, egomaniac narcissist like Casso would be sitting around bragging about how many people he killed. Oh, I never hid the fact that I was a fighter. I fought with a lot of guys in the street. I just didn't believe in murder. Not that I did not that I couldn't have done it. I just didn't want to do it. And I learned that in the 70s from Dave Icavetti, and we talked about who he was. But this guy, Casso, there's no doubt that he thought he had a license. And that's the line we used to have, a license. You could say I had a license to steal, I had a license to rob. I believe Casso thought that he had a license to kill people.
well, yeah, I mean, he even had corrupt police officers helping him
Right,
get away with this stuff, giving him
right,
information. And on our
right,
Patreon, we did a whole little segment that's going to be coming out next Saturday as well about the mafia cops and how they were connected with Casso and what murders they did with him. But it's like, when he has that kind of power behind him, feds in there giving him information, telling him who's watching who and who's informing. I mean, he
right.
even said that there was a guy that gave him information on 15 murders and that guy was solely responsible for, giving this information, 15 men or whatever, 15 men, women, who knows, who he took out. But he said that's,
Yeah.
15 people he took out due to that information from a corrupt law enforcement person.
I think I think it's my opinion that the government, when he decided to flip, I don't think they knew all the details of what this guy did. There's no way to know. It's like we have people listening to some of this stuff and they'll make comments like some of the stories I shared. And they go, there's no way he could have did all of that. But you got to remember, when you're in a life of crime, I slept 3-4 hours a day. I still only sleep 3-4 hours a day. I was out there every day, 18, 20 hours, involved in all kinds of possible crimes. And with this guy, Casso, when he flipped, I think the government got nervous because he actually started to tell them about maybe some federal agents, maybe FBI, that he had those people, on the payroll, paying them, getting info. They didn't want to hear that. The government doesn't want to hear that kind of stuff.
Oh, and in his book, he mentioned, like I said, this is coming from his book, so whether it's true or not, I don't know. But he said when he decided to become a cooperating informant, they had told him to, they didn't want to hear anything about the feds, the cops. They didn't want to hear anything about corruption. They only wanted the mafia guys. So that, if that's true or not, I don't know. But it was in the book. So, I mean, he was dealing with those kind of people, though. So it wouldn't be far-fetched. And, when he became an informant, too, he just decided that he was screwed over by the mob. And that's why he was ready to become an informant. I suppose because other guys in his crew and stuff probably flipped, and he was just, paranoid, and because he was paranoid. And we'll cover that too as well. I mean,
what year did he flip? I'm trying to put together the time frame.
Well, I don't even have the date here. I don't have it, but maybe if I look it up,
wasn't it like near 1990 or something?
Yeah, I mean, he was a lot older.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at was, Henry was like early on. 1980, 81, when he flipped, and I flipped in 84, and that was completely out of character with the guys inside the life. But by the time Casso had got to the late 80s and 1990, the government could pick and choose the people that they wanted, to flip, because, there was so many government informants and cooperating witnesses that they could pick and choose who they wanted to put on the stand. And I think I actually read it said that Casso was beyond redemption. There was nothing redeemable about him. He did so many murders. And, even his wife called him a dirty pig, because he didn't have any loyalty, no loyalty for his family, his wife, the guys that he was involved with, where there was supposed to be this brotherhood, this loyalty. So I think Casso started to put a focus on the end of the mob. It was just taking place, maybe 1990. Don't forget, we were just going online in those days too.
Well, you're right. It was 1994 is when he finalized his plea agreement. Right. And it says he pled guilty to 70 crimes, including racketeering, extortion, and 15 murders.
Yeah, so that was way, way down the road from Henry, which was 14 years earlier. 94, that was already 10 years had gone by in my life, and I watched everything that was going on. Remember, Gotti was free as a bird in 86, and he went all the way up to 92 before Sammy flipped. So by 94, everything was upside down. The mob was being decimated by witnesses, informants, and a lot of dirt was coming out. Dirt, like with Scarpa and people like that, who Scarpa was a 20, maybe 30, 40 year informant. And that's a guy we probably should do a show on. I mean, I talked a lot to the daughter some years ago when she was getting a book published, but she wasn't very successful at promoting the book. But I have the manuscript she sent, and she talks about all these guys. I mean, she knew her dad's life, so that guy was an active informant. It wasn't like Casso, who got busted and then he became an informant. The guy Scarpa was out there on the street doing this stuff every day, a little bit like Donnie Brasco. Yeah. So with Casso, all the dirt came out at the end, and he thought he he was holding a trading card that he could testify, and then we're going to cut him loose. But he kept lying to the government. You can't lie.
Well, he wanted the deal like Sammy the Bull, and he was in
Right.
the book. You could tell he was pretty upset about the deal that
Yeah.
Sammy had gotten, and he didn't. So I mean, if Anthony pled guilty to 15 murders, and then Sammy pled guilty to 19, so that's what he was probably thinking, that he could get a deal like that. But when you lie, like you said,
Yeah.
they're not gonna give you any deal after that, right?
Yeah.
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 Well,
I mean, he got caught in all kinds of lies. And I'm sure the two, Eppolito and Caracappa, those two New York City detectives, they must have been in total shock when Casso pulled the covers and revealed what they were doing for years.
well, he even said years later he had ran into maybe 10 years later, after not seeing like Vic and Musso. They both went into the prison. Vic never became an informant, but Anthony did, and so they ran into each other. Right here it says they were face to face after 10 years of not seeing each other. They were both called by the defense to appear in court, and Vic told Anthony, he said, "I'm sure you regret becoming an informant." And then Anthony told him, they're more corrupt than the Mafia ever was. And that was it.
Yeah. Did Musso ever turn?
No, he didn't. I think he got life in prison. I'm pretty sure he's still in there for like 30 some years.
Is he alive or dead?
I'm pretty sure he's alive, yeah.
Huh.
I've seen a lot of recent pictures of him. So, yeah, he's still around, man.
Wow.
But he ended up getting a life sentence just like Anthony. So, I mean, he said he would have never given them any kind of information whatsoever if he knew that it was going to go down like that.
Yeah. Well.
But, yeah, he ended up dying in prison. And I believe that was just recently because...
Yeah, he just died like 2 years ago out here in Arizona.
Oh, so he was in Arizona, man? Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, he had all kinds of disease. I think he got COVID. Like I've always said, most of these guys, mob guys that were killers and all, I didn't see any one of them die a peaceful death. They all died miserable. There's a few still alive, but, they get a disease and they just suffer and die. I mean, so you either pay now or you pay later. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and then the afterlife too. That wherever he ended up going, man. Yeah, he died. It says that he got in 2020. He tested positive for COVID.
Yeah,
and he was in isolation, and he wanted to be released for compassionate release, but it was rejected, and he ended up dying from COVID in December 2020.
Yeah. But
78 years old.
Some of the things that guy did, though, I mean, when you look back, and he had meetings with like Vincent Chiganti, and after Gotti, went ahead and killed Castellano, Chiganti hated Gotti, and I believe that Casso was probably jealous of Gotti, maybe getting all that publicity, and somehow, I think Angelo tried to get Casso killed.
Yeah, and from what I had researched was with that. Remember, we did the episode on Angelo Ruggiero maybe a couple months back when we first started covering the 10 hitman that you were involved with and that you knew, and he was one of them. And so what we found, or what we kind of discovered, was that he had been put on the shelf by Gotti at the end of his life, because of multiple reasons, but one of them was because he tried to take out a made guy who was Casso. And Casso, the whole reason was because Casso called him. He said that Angelo was just as good as a rat because he was on the phone and he was blabbing about everything. And so, Angelo didn't like that. So we got someone to shoot him 6 times, I think it was. And then Casso ended up living. And then he found out, he got the information, and he knew he was able to take him out. Or he took the guy out that Angelo had sent.
Was that Heidel?
I believe so, yeah. And
the two cops found him. The two corrupt cops found him and delivered him to Casso.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, man. Amazing. If anyone has any questions they'd like to bring up about Casso or anything you'd like me and Sal to answer, please, feel free to do so.
Yeah.
We got some comments in here, Sal, if you want to.
Go ahead, take them. Let's take the comments.
All right, let's see. Sal is the man, they said right here. Thanks for tuning in. Joey Bubbles says, good morning, fellas.
Good morning. Bubbles struggled last night with the Indianapolis Colts. His team lost.
Oh, man, I'm sure he's pretty devastated about that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Torres says, love the stories. Look forward to talking about this episode today.
Tell your friends. Let's get more people on here. We can get more information.
Oh, yeah, that'd be
We
great.
got a lot of news stories coming.
Oh, yeah, we do. Pat says, good morning, gents. Good morning,
Good morning, Pat. Oh, you got a little storm up there in New York, Pat.
Pat. Snowstorm or just thunder?
Yeah,
What do they
snow,
got
I
coming?
think. Bad weather in New York.
Yeah, it's supposed to be coming here too in a couple days. Well, actually, today or tomorrow. Martin says, what did the bosses think of Casso, Sal?
I don't know what they thought, but you got to remember this guy was a blazer, man. The reputation he developed, I'm sure, and of course the bosses were changing quickly after Castellano was killed in 85. Gotti come along, and a lot of those older mob guys were jealous of Gotti. And of course, he didn't get permission from all the heads of the families. So I think, Casso took advantage of that and probably, you know, chimed in with some of those guys behind Gotti's back. I think. I don't know. I wasn't there, but everything changed rapidly right around the mid 80s, late 80s.
Well, from his book, he had said that he was pretty close with Vincent Gigante,
Right.
and that they weren't believing Gotti when he came
No.
into the meeting, and the commission meeting is what Anthony called it in the book, and he said that it was like, Gotti said, "Oh yeah, we got some leads in Sicily of some guys that might have took out Paul," and they knew that he was just that. Anthony claimed that they knew he was just BSing around.
Yeah, he was selling them a story so they would take the heat off of him. But everybody knew he did it. I mean, there was the FBI was out there taking pictures on by the Ravenite. Everybody was kissing Gotti on the cheek. Gotti loved it. He didn't care. I told you his attitude from way back was like, I don't care what happens. I'm never going to admit anything. I just want to be in the spotlight. That's what he liked, and that's what eventually took him down, being in the spotlight and the government getting high-tech surveillance equipment. You saw what they did in Get Gotti. They put a refrigerator box over there by the Ravenite, listening to all kinds of things. I believe the mob, who weren't exactly 100-watt bulbs, they underestimated the power of the FBI.
Well, another thing, another boss that Anthony talked about that he had a connection with was Carlo Gambino. Carlo said, "Oh, I heard you're doing good things," to Anthony. It's too bad you went with the Lucchese's, but you're doing good, and that was what his interaction was with Gambino. So whether or not, like I said, it's true or not, I don't know. I'm just reporting what I read from the book. But yeah, good question there, Martin. Dean says, "Top boy."
Hello, Dean. How are you?
Pat says, "Happy, safe, and successful New Year." Thanks, Pat. You too. Dean says, maybe we'll stay out of that one. It says the Christopher Colombo will just, like you said, we don't get involved in all that shit. Well, he didn't say nothing bad. He just said, "Happy I made it, lad." And Christopher Colombo was tripping balls. I figured Netflix ain't entertaining him, so I'll go to the post office 2 in the morning. I don't know.
Okay.
Noah says, "Good morning."
Good morning, Noah.
Miss Bubble says, "Hey guys."
Hey, CC.
Pete here says, "Sal, when was the first time you heard about Casso? Did you hear about him on the street?"
Oh yeah, I heard Cataldo knew him, so I heard about him in the 70s, before he got popular, because he had a lot of different people working for him. The guy was a master thief. He was a con artist. I mean, he did all kinds of things. And I think there's a lot the government doesn't even know that he did do, because when he finally flipped, he probably started telling him what he thought was okay to tell him. But, like I said before, when I flipped and the government sat me down and said, "Look, you're going to have to take a lie detector test about this corrupt judge in New York," I did the test and I told the truth. And they said, "Wow, you're right on. All we can do is use this polygraph to give it to the judge. And I think for Casso, he flunked really bad. He had no credibility with the FBI because when you come over, you got to start like brand new, and you can't be involved in any crime. You can't lie because they're going to catch you.
That's true. That's very true. Bobby says, "Good morning, Sal and Adrian. I made it. LOL. Thanks for tuning
Okay.
in. He's a Patreon subscriber of ours, Sal.
Okay. Good morning, Bobby.
He said he lied about his assets of money.
Yeah, that's pretty easy to lie about. I will admit that they asked me if I had any money when I went into the final meeting to sign up for the witness protection program because you have to go to be interviewed by a psychologist and everything. So I make sure I had no money, like $50 or $100. But they didn't ask my son if he had any money. So, I got around a little bit of that, to be honest. After 39 years, I'll tell the truth.
This one said from John. He says Pete the Pick.
Says he was a crackhead.
Yeah, maybe he's talking about Casso, but you don't recall who Pete the Pick is?
No, who is that?
Well, he was with the Lucchese, or let me see, the Mayo crew, and Joey Bubbles. He told me that he ran into this guy, and he in Vegas, recently or something like that, or that he was on vacation with his wife, and he said that this guy remembers you, and this guy was somewhat a part of the Mayo crew, I believe, and he's out doing a couple podcasts and interviews I've seen recently. So he remembers you, I guess, and maybe ask Bubbles about that.
We had a guy contact us the other day. He told you that he painted my auto body shop.
Yeah.
I remember his family, but I don't remember him. If I talk to him, it might ring a bell. Things come back, but God, this is 50 years ago. So the stuff that I have fresh in my mind, I talk about. But the obscure day-to-day operations, I mean, yeah, I could tell you some of the detail, but I don't even know if the public wants to hear about it. I mean, it's just like going to work every day in the mob. You have to go to work.
They probably would. The guy that reached out was related to Anthony Stabile.
Yeah.
Stabile, yeah. And he was with, what crew did I say? Lucchese. He was associate of Paulie crew.
Yeah.
And his brother you knew too, Tommy.
Fat Tommy, yeah.
Fat Tommy, yeah. And they were both with the Paulie crew,
I think so. I mean, I'm not sure. They might have been with the Bananos. I just, nobody openly would say, "Oh, I'm with the Bananos. I'm with the Luccheses." I mean, if you got to talk to somebody like Vario, you could listen to his expressions, and you'd realize that guy was with him, whoever he was talking about. But I don't readily remember, and I didn't ask. We just didn't ask those questions 50 years ago.
Earl or Eddie says, "Good morning from Howard Beach, Sal. That's your old neighbor."
You're in Howard Beach. I went there a few years ago. I was doing the interview for Netflix. It's got to be 2.5 years ago. And my wife and I went to a Starbucks over there on Cross Bay Boulevard, and we were standing there. And the guy looked at me, goes, "I remember you." And my wife says, "You know my husband?" I was sitting at the table, and the guy said, "Oh yeah, I seen him on TV a lot of times. Isn't your husband's name Sal?" So I hadn't been there in 30 years, and the guy remembered me.
He recognized you, man.
Howard Beach, yeah, great place.
Let's see. Here we got our super chat here from Lori. She says, "Sal, did you know Anthony Ramundi? He ran the Diplomat on 3rd Ave and Carroll Street."
Carroll Street. Oh, that's totally Italian over there. I had family over there, but I didn't know Anthony. But that used to be a very, very tight Italian enclave, Carroll Street. Wow. And they had all the old Colombos there, and it was pretty interesting. Great neighborhood.
But so they had lots of different Colombo guys there. It was just
yeah. You had guys. Everybody was well known over there. It was totally Italian on first place, second place, third place. I mean, it was a great neighborhood. I don't know what happened to it, but.
So did you go there and frequent with some of the Colombo guys?
My son's godmother and godfather. It was Joey Cataldo, which was Dominic's brother. His wife, Louise, she lived there. She grew up there. So we'd always go in to visit her family and her dad, Sammy. And it was a nice neighborhood. It was very, very Italian for Brooklyn. I mean, it was the heart of, there was a heartbeat there. Mob. Everything was mob. Jerry Langella was there. That's just the way it was.
Yeah. Well, was Joey Cataldo with the Columbos then? If he
Yeah,
was with
yeah, more or
Cataldo,
less.
yeah.
I don't know if he ever got made. He was my gumbada. He baptized my kid Joseph.
Mhm.
But things happen, things that you don't know, and time passes, and it was always a connection to Carroll Street.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can find some about Casso. So here, this one says Vic is still the boss. So I mean,
Really?
yeah, Gary says that here. So maybe, I mean, he's in prison, so maybe there's acting bosses and stuff, but
No,
maybe
he
he's still,
must be 80 some years old,
yeah. I mean,
right?
Casso was 78 when he died, so yeah, he's
Yeah,
got to be 80 now.
yeah, sure.
Richard says, "Good morning, guys. Good morning, Richard."
Good morning, Richard.
So Vinny Asaro recently died, is what Eddie said. I seen
Yeah,
that.
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah,
He was with the Bonanno family.
right. And his father and his son.
Yeah. Gary has some more information here about Casso.
Yeah.
So he said Jimmy Heidel's mom saw Eppolito on TV promoting his book, and that's how the investigation started and brought him down. She knew that
Wow.
that was the cop that took away her son, along with Capo.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember seeing that in
Yeah.
the documentary. Man, terrible.
Terrible situation.
Pat said Casso kept what is it?
Meticulous records as he was prepping to flip if caught. How about that?
Yeah, I wonder
I
what
think
he.
he did have records, and they found him with a few $100,000 with his girlfriend, and it was a make-believe wedding list. But that list of guys were supposedly guys that were going to get made. So I guess he was a meticulous guy, Casso, in a lot of ways.
Well, he also had a list of people from his crew. I believe he was going to take out as
Right,
well. And him and Casso, or Vic, went on the run for a while when they got indicted.
right.
They weren't looking to go to prison, but um, Little Al Diarco was their acting boss, and he became an informant. He might have gave up their location.
Right.
Maybe Burt Kaplan gave up Casso's, but Vic, I think maybe he
Wow.
was set up in the telephone pole, or he was he was on the phone, at one of those telephone booths that probably
Amazing.
don't
Yeah.
have around too much anymore. But
Yeah.
he was in there and he got busted too. But let's see. In mid-70s, in a street fight, Polisi versus Tommy DeSimone, who would win?
He
From
was
Boris.
not a fighter. People don't know. He was not a fighter. He would rather kill. He saw me take a few guys apart. I mean, if you could talk to Gene Gotti, he would tell you what I did to Redbird. I tore the guy apart right inside the Bergen. So I was a fighter, and I didn't kill. Could I have? Yeah, I could have probably killed, but I like to fight, especially big guys.
You were a fighter, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Man. Let's see. What else do we got on here? Let's see. Pete rolled with DeMeo crew. That's who Pete the Pick is what he's talking about.
Oh, I didn't know him. Oh,
Yeah,
he hung out with the DeMeo crew. I think Bubbles said that Pete went to jail for a lot of years.
he might have. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
he got picked up with some other stuff.
yeah.
I don't know if he went away for any murders or just what kind of crimes he did, but Noah says, "Love the show. I'm in the Queens area, so he's
Queens
out there."
area. Yeah, okay, that's all there. Used to be, the spot.
This one says, "Do you remember anything about Safe Away Auto Body and Collision in Ozone Park in the '70s?"
I don't. I don't remember the Safeway auto body. Interesting. There was so many guys that had, auto body shops. They were really chop shops in disguise. And in those days, we could get away with all kind of things, dismantling cars, doing what we call tag jobs. You go and get a wrecked car and you go steal one just like it. It's like a clone. You slap the VIN in there, you sell it, and you make sure you steal it, get it back, and destroy the evidence.
Yeah, a lot of chop shop operations
Yeah,
you
yeah,
ran there.
yeah.
Joey Bubbles followed up. He said Pete the Pick was a car thief. That was his specialty. He said he was with
Oh,
the
well, he
Mayos.
was with DeMayo stealing cars. Yeah, see, DeMayo, I don't know because I didn't know the other guys that was stealing cars for him. I guess he could get rid of as many cars as you could get. Who knows how many buildings he had? Some guys had one little tiny building. I had three different buildings, two in Queens, one in Brooklyn. Then I bought three properties in Brooklyn, and I used two of those buildings. So we were always rotating the chop shops.
Yeah, so just always moving, man, so you don't get
Moving,
busted.
yeah, yeah.
My dad says, "Good morning, gentlemen."
Good morning, Chris.
Bill says, "What is that?"
Sapienza's was a deli.
Oh,
I
okay.
was a little kid, lived on 83rd Street across from the school. Dad moved us away. Sapienza was a popular Italian deli on 101st Avenue, and I think it was maybe 84th Street, like that.
Yeah, man, you remember
Oh,
that?
yeah, we used to go there.
Pretty
Get,
good one.
yeah.
Pete says, "Sal, was there any heist that Casso did that everyone knew about?" Like, hmm, let
I
me.
don't know if it made the news, but I think Casso was more of a sneak thief. From what I heard from Cataldo, he had really quality burglars. I mean, there was burglars and there was sophisticated burglars. So he had guys that knew how to, bypass the alarm system. That's why they called it the bypass gang.
Well, what was kind of strange was that in his book he talked about Anthony talked about starting that gas scam with the Russian mob and the
Right,
Colombo family.
right.
So Michael Francis was deeply, big. He was kind of like the face of it that we all know, and he shared the story about that. But he said um, all families were appointed by someone to represent them in this scam. So Chin appointed a man named Danny Paganano, and then Arena was appointed his son Vic Arena Jr., and then Chrissy Tick with the Lucchese family appointed someone named Frankie Lastrano, and then John Gotti appointed someone named Fat Tony Morello, and he said the Bonanno
Tony
family.
Pep. Tony Pep. I knew him.
Yeah, Tony Pep. Yeah, there
Tony
you go.
Pep, Trent Acosta. He went to Florida and went down there and moved his operation down there.
Well, yeah, he said, and then he said the Bonanno family was not involved with this because he said they just were on the outs with them,
Yeah,
probably with the Donnie Brasco thing, and then
yeah,
them being
yeah.
involved with selling
Yeah,
drugs.
that
But
was when Messina was the head, but who knows what their reactions were. I don't even know if Messina socialized or did any business with Casso. It didn't come up. He never brought his name up.
oh, look what we got here, Sal. We got Jacqueline. She sent in $20. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Good morning, Jacqueline. How are you?
Thanks for the support always. That's awesome, man. $20. She's always kind, man.
What question do you have for us, Jackie?
What would you like to ask Sal today? Let's see. Let's see. Tracy says, Adrian, Happy New Year, son. Sorry I've been probably busy. She says, all good now. Well, thank you for tuning in. This is
Hello,
the
Tracy.
me and
Tell your
Sal.
friends about our show. We're going to keep going forward and more new stories.
Oh, yeah, we got plenty of them. Let's see. Danny said you knew Patty Testa, Sal?
I didn't know him. Did not know Testa or what was the other guy, Center? I did not know those guys. They were about 10 years younger than me. And I mean, when they were running with DeMayo, they were probably maybe 18, 20 years old. He might have broke them in as criminals because both those guys, I think, were born in 55. So by the time, DeMayo was at the height of his criminality, they were probably 18, 20, 22 years old.
Probably, yeah, way younger, man. Torres says, Sal, in the movie Goodfellas, when Henry goes over the Wise Guy bar, was there really a guy nicknamed Nicky Eyes and the guy that said everything twice? That was,
Well, it's interesting that you ask this question because we haven't revealed that next week I'm going to spend 2 days covering the movie Goodfellas, because it all happened within a few blocks of where I lived, and I knew these guys. So as far as Nicky Eyes and the guy that said everything two times, I think Scorsese might have focused in on listening to Henry. Henry was a good storyteller, and so they probably created a couple of characters that fit in there. Most people don't know exactly what went on, but I do know that De Niro called Henry 2, 3 times a day to try to get, inside information about what it was like in the life. So, yeah, the more I look at it, I remember in '90 when the Goodfellas movies came out, I wasn't very impressed, only because I thought that Scorsese diminished the Jimmy Burke character, because I always thought he was brilliant. But the movie worked, and couple of those guys became stars. I mean, really, Liotta was amazing. He had to audition for that part, Liotta.
You remember Johnny Echoes? That's kind of where they said he was based
Yeah,
off.
yeah. I was in prison with Echoes from Harlem.
And he
Yeah,
was with the Purple Gang.
yeah. Oh, yeah. He was a big drug dealer.
Yeah, well, that's what it goes to show, man. That they kind of maybe they did
Yeah,
base it off of him. He was the
right,
only one that
right.
was similar to that, and I've seen
Yeah.
multiple videos about that. So
You guys stay tuned and listen, because next week, Adrian and I are going to spend 2 days in LA filming all about Goodfellas, inside, outside, the characters, the structure of the film. And it'll be interesting, because we're going to give it another sort of POV, a point of view from a guy who lived the life, which I did. I'm not going to criticize it. I'm just going to sort of loosely analyze the way the characters came together, who they were. And I think, like Scorsese never once, included the fact of the Tommy character sniffing coke. Pesci didn't have that in the movie, but he was a coke freak.
oh yeah, and for as many questions as we get for Henry Hill and Goodfellas and all that, it'll be good to put out something, a professional kind of episodes, like you said, this thing.
Right,
So it's going
right,
to be really cool to see, because people are going to be interested. We get so
right.
many every live we do, man. Seriously, we always
Yeah,
get them. It's not bad, but it's like this. It's a good thing, We'll have something for them to go to and watch. You know what I mean? It'll
right.
be cool. Let's see. I want to get some more questions in, I suppose, about Casso. Let's see. Anthony Casso's son-in-law is a Genovese maid guy. I'm pretty sure is what he said. So yeah,
Wow. I didn't know that, and I don't know who his son-in-law was or is.
let's see. Casso and
Frank
Frank
Listorino.
to hit Patty Testa when Vic Amuso found out he shelved him. Patty or Frank. Some more information there. Did you ever hear of any of those guys?
I never heard of that storyline. No.
Let's see. Patty Testa was Joey's brother. He was
Okay.
even younger. Gaspipe had killed him in the late 80s or early 90s. I guess he was extremely close to Vic.
Oh, I didn't know that Testa had a younger brother, and gas pipe killed him. Wow. Jeez.
So that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Okay. Lex said, Sal, did you know anyone in the bypass gang? They pulled jewelry heist. Gaspipe and Frank DeChico were associated with them.
I did know a couple of guys in there, but they were very closed mouth about the things they did. There was a guy named Sonny that was a great burglar. I mean, he was a master at torching, using a torch. So, and matter of fact, and that was in the 70s and 80s they were doing that. By the time 1980 came, I opened up a jewelry store, and I asked this guy, Sonny, what's the best safe for me to buy? And he says, you have to buy an English safe called, it was called Chatwood Milner, and you can't burn it. No matter what torch you use, it had certain metal in there where it would minutely explode. So I bought a Chatwood Milner from England, maybe 25,000, and I kept diamonds in there, and nobody ever broke into that safe. So they knew a lot about which safes were easier to get through and what kind of work it took to get. I guess these guys actually tunneled down and got inside safe deposit rooms and then, rifled through the safe deposit boxes. That's what I heard about the bypass gang.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so you knew him, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah.
Didn't go on bypass robberies and stuff, but
No.
had some kind of interaction with them. Lori says Casso and Musso demanded a 50% kick up from the New Jersey Lucchese crew. Tony Ducks only asked for 1%, apparently.
Well, that's interesting information. Whoever Lori is, that's pretty interesting. I wasn't familiar with those demands.
Yeah, because that definitely started internal beef, I would assume.
So that she must have meant Vic Amuso.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Musso, yeah.
50% kick. Wow.
Let's see. He says better late than never. Probably just tuning in. Thanks for tuning in, man. Let's see. Lori also had a follow up. She said Eppolito, the crooked cop that Casso paid off, was in Goodfellas, and he played Fat Andy Ruggiano in the opening scene.
Yeah, he was a chubby guy, and I don't know how he got the part, but probably Scorsese was sympathetic because he was considered a hero cop, and I don't think he had any lines, but the bottom line was that he got in the movie. And then he, sort of left New York, went to Vegas, and Eppolito and Caracapo were going to become producers, as far as what I heard.
Yeah, it's insane, man. But it's not too far fetched. Danny says, "Who was Gaspy closest to on the street, if anyone? If can't imagine anyone wants to get too close to him."
Yeah, you get too close to him, and you had a short life. I mean, he'd put your lights out. I mean, even Govano said he was a sicko, or he called him a half a nut, But I mean, this guy was a serial killer. Actually, he really was.
I think Gambino wise, he was close with Frank DeCicco. I mean, they kind of did some work together, and they seemed to, when John Gotti was planning to take out Paul from the book again. It was said that Frank DeCicco approached Gaspipe, and he told him, he's like, "Hey, John's going to do this. I need you to remain neutral.
Right.
And, this is what's going to happen." So
yeah,
I guess that's what he did. But
he was acting. He was acting because if he told DeCicco he was going to be, okay, I'll be neutral, then it wasn't long after that he killed DeCicco. And, he was a treacherous guy. So he was speaking from both sides of his mouth. I mean, look, he said, "Oh yeah, I'll be neutral and it's okay. Let Gotti do what he wants." But I'm not sure if he was jealous or he was just insane over the fact that Gotti was getting all that publicity. A guy like Gaspipe was a narcissist. He probably wanted publicity.
Probably so. And he also had some inside information too, that, one of his relatives or someone higher up in the mob, Anthony Casso, said that the murder of Albert Anastasia was done by Vito Genovese, Carlo Gambino, Crazy Joe Gallo, Albert Kid Blast Gallo, Carmine Persico the Snake, and his godfather, Anthony Casso's godfather, Sally Calambrano, told him this. Told him that.
Right.
So, that was another inside information I wanted to bring up because.
But who knows to believe him or not?
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, this from the book. That's what.
Yeah, he told that to the writer. I don't know. The guy was a dangerous guy. He was duplicitous. Even his wife called him duplicitous. At the end, she called him that.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and I know this is going to be a pretty good part 1 and part 2 series. We're going to have a really good structure for it. So, I mean, it'll be from the beginning of his life till up until the end. We've already got part 1 recorded. We're going to do part 2 sometime this coming week. But
I really think he was the beginning of totally publicly, allowing the general population to see how corrupt and how all the mob guys lost their character, their loyalty, their brotherhood. It was going out the door. And I think it did more damage than, anybody knew at the time, as well as Gotti, who just went public with everything he did. I mean, Gotti would go around New York City signing, you know, champagne bottles at weddings. I mean, he was just a public figure, and he was a glamorous gangster, and everybody believed that.
Well, another treacherous thing though was that, I mean, this just is another prime example. So I mean, Fat Pete, he became an informant, and he was a capo in that Lucchese family, and what he was pretty close with Casso too. Pete killed 12 people for the Lucchese family.
Wow.
Before becoming a capo, he liked beating people up badly. He became an informant against Casso. And this is just, from Casso's point of view again. I read it in the book, and he said that Fat Pete was told by a man in law enforcement named Doug McCain, who was their leak in the FBI. So, yeah, he was with the FBI, that there was a bug on the top of Fat Pete's shop in his roof. So Pete had a man go up there, take it down, but the feds knew that someone was giving the mob guys information, because this guy went and took down the bug. I mean, why would he know about that? So,
Right.
Pete ended up. Pete knew that he would get killed over this. So, since that, since he was conducting business in there and it was picked up on the bug, Anthony was going to look at it as if he was a rat. So he ended up deciding to become an informant. And during that time, Pete was also shot 12 times, but he survived. And he was able to go on to testify.
Because he was a big fat guy, I read.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen maybe one picture of him online.
Didn't Casso threaten his wife?
I think so. I got to make sure I get that added in there, because he did. I think it was his sister. He was going to hurt the sister.
Family,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, he was going to hurt their family. And he might have actually did. But, yeah, I mean,
that was something that was never done before. The mob guys didn't hurt family. They just took it to the guy that they were interested in, killing or getting even with, or they didn't really go after family. That was something brand new, like the Colombians did down there or something. Another world, another lifestyle of crime. So it was another piece of the loyalty and brotherhood that was just evaporated. There's no longer any trust inside the mob, and I think that hurt the organization.
Yeah, and for us to even try to even comprehend or justify it or anything, it's never going to add up. We're never going to be like, wow, why would he do that? Right. I mean, there's no way to think, why would he take out his friend that he was close with doing all these crimes? Yeah, we're like, wow, that doesn't even make any sense. But still, like you said, these guys were different, man. They didn't think like the regular person.
No.
I mean, you were one of them, but you weren't committing murders and stuff like that.
No, that I wasn't interested in that.
No.
I just saw it as, sooner or later, you get what you give. And that's what happened to Tommy. When I think about Tommy, he was weak in a lot of ways. He liked women. He liked getting high on cocaine. And, that wasn't a part of his personality in the movie, in Goodfellas. I mean, he had a comedic little a comedic sense, joking around with Henry, but, the bottom line was he was a killer. And that's the way it was. And I mean, Scorsese painted him as the treacherous killer.
Yeah. Looks like we got some question about some Lucchese guys. I suppose since we're on the topic about talking about them, we'll go to that. But let's see. Where did it go? All right. So we'll start with this one. Supposedly, Casso asked Tony Ducks to not make him boss and instead make a Musso boss so he could avoid the heat and the heat that comes with it. He was very Machiavellian.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's my opinion. Maybe he was doing that to keep the focus off of him as the boss, where bosses were getting killed all the time. So who really knows what Casso did? Maybe he felt comfortable pulling the strings if a Musso was the boss. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. Okay, for the heat that comes with it, worrying about being killed, also having more responsibilities, and that's what he claimed. Right. That's what he told the guys that when they offered him to become the boss. Again, according to the book, he told them, "I don't want no responsibility. I just want to do my own thing."
Right.
So maybe, let's see. Who took over the Lucchese crew after Vario was in prison?
I don't know that. I do not know those details because, I wasn't privileged to know that. Maybe
Yeah.
somebody on the street knew.
Well, Danny said, I heard or read somewhere that Fat Pete had a comedy club or a nightclub, and he was friends with Eddie Murphy.
Well, that's interesting. That could be funny.
Yeah, that is pretty funny. Maybe After the Life or something.
Yeah.
Let's see. Lex said, do you think Gotti okayed the off-record hit on Casso?
I don't know because I truly believe that Angelo was taking advantage of Gotti's position, and everybody knew he was, up Gotti's butt, and maybe he got away with pulling things off, like that guy he killed, the guy that he borrowed 200,000 off. So, if Angelo had attempted to pull a hit off on Casso, don't know if Gotti knew, but Angelo was sort of like a slithery guy in a lot of ways. He really was. He wasn't the most colorful crayon in the box.
Let's see. Danny says, Sal, did you know Vic Amuso's brother, Bobby Amuso?
Did not know him.
Let's see. They're just talking back and forth. This one says, Sal, give us your picks for tomorrow's championship match between Michigan and Washington. Go blue.
Well, I would like Washington to win, but my friend Joey Bubbles, he doesn't like Washington. He thinks Michigan's going to do it. So far, nobody's been able to penetrate Michigan, but I do like the quarterback for Washington. But I think that you could flip a coin on that one. That's going to be an interesting game.
Pete's right about this, too. He said, I read that Casso was angry at Pete because he took a plea deal and didn't consult him. That was another reason. That was another factor because it made him and Amuso look more guilty.
Yeah, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't agree to somebody telling me whether to take a plea or not. I mean, there was guys who got convicted in the 80s that could have got 5 or 10 years. They wound up getting 50 years, like Gene Gotti, because the brother said, oh, no, don't take a plea. But people forget Gotti took a plea.
Did he? With the McBratney
he took a
deal?
plea on the McBratney case.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Who was Tony Lee? I'm not sure if he was with Lucchese.
Tony Lee was Fat Andy's partner.
Okay, Tony Lee. All right. So did he die of natural causes?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Anthony Ruggiano. He'll tell you. He was very close with Tony Lee.
Yeah, he'd know. Yeah, he would. Yeah, he does live shows and stuff too. He might be a good source for that. Let's see. Maybe they're just talking back and forth. Oh, he's right here. He said, I'm enjoying your book, The Sinatra Club, Sal.
Yeah, you got to know that the Sinatra Club came about after I actually shot the movie Sinatra Club. We didn't have a lot of money, so we did a sort of a very minimal type of a movie, Sinatra Club. And while I was doing the movie, I wrote a proposal with a guy named Steve Dougherty, who's a terrific writer. He's covered rock and roll for 40, 50 years. And I went to Simon & Schuster and I pitched it, and they gave us a deal. So in that book was a lot of what went on from my point of view, because the first book that Nick Taylor wrote was about my kids, and it wasn't my point of view. And I felt I wanted to, give these stories from my point of view. Most of it's accurate. I would like to say there was a little bit of an embellishment. I mean, the whole scene, it came up recently about the guy in Florida. I mean, look, I didn't write that stuff. I told the story. The truth of the matter is I got to that place, let's put it out there today, and I threatened the guy. I tied him to the pool table. I did not castrate the guy. I made a little slice near his testicles. That's it. So it got to the point where people embellished it. So that's the real truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And that order came from Johnny Dio. So I'm answering some guys that want to question, the validity, the honesty of my stories. And that's it. I did not castrate the guy. So let's put that out there today.
Oh, it's out there now.
Yeah.
No, I know.
It was a threat. That's all it was, a threat.
Yeah. No, it's good. I mean, maybe one day we do an episode about the whole situation, because we never even We never did a whole episode about it.
No.
And Johnny Dio was involved with it, so
Yeah.
I'd be interested. People probably would be interested to hear what really happened. Let's see. Yeah, we got a lot of good questions in today, but let's see. Anybody else have any more questions about Casso? Since we got our episode about Casso today, any other questions you have that you want before we wrap up today? But yeah,
I think it's my opinion that Casso enjoyed his reputation, whether or not people knew he had those 2 mafia cops, on the pad. He was paying them, but he enjoyed everything he did, like that whole scene with the Russian guy who owned the nightclub when he went there and told him, "Don't worry about it. Tell that other Russian to come get his money tomorrow." The next day came, and he had Tester or Center, whichever one it was, shoot the guy flat out dead in the parking lot.
Yeah, they didn't. I don't know, just a different group of guys, that's for sure, man, to be able to do all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think next Sunday we can let people know. You tune in. Me and Sal should be together doing a live episode. Not sure on the exact time, but we'll be in person together. That'll be awesome.
We'll be in LA in the studio, so we'll let you know what's going on and see what you think of it.
Yeah, because I'll be leaving early, so maybe early in the morning or something. We'll see. We'll make it work. We'll figure it out. But it'll be cool. We'll finally get to do a live show together.
Okay. What else we got?
Well, I'm just seeing if we got any more questions on here. Jesse said nice. That was the most recent one. But no, I mean, if you guys have any other questions, I suppose, just comment in before we wrap up here. I suppose.
Speaking of Jesse James, does everybody know what Jimmy Burke did about his 2 sons?
What's that?
So he had 2 sons. One was named Frank and the other was Jesse. So he called Frankie, Frankie James, and the other guy, Jesse James Burke. And he gave him those names. And they were known to visit Jimmy Burke in Atlanta Federal Penitentiary back in the 70s. And he had them curse out all the guards. They would use filthy language and curse the guards out. And I heard the story that Atlanta Penitentiary barred his kids from visiting them there because they were so vile. They were tough kids. So that's the story. And Jimmy Burke always wanted to be a criminal.
Like says, would Casso kill family members?
I guess he threatened. I think he was a sicko.
Here's one from Lori again. She says, did you ever encounter Shorty Spiro, Sonny Red, or Jerry Papa?
I did not meet those guys. I did not meet them. Nope.
Aldo did, though. Well, no, I thought that said Sonny Black. No, that's Sonny Red, yeah. No, but Cataldo knew Jerry, right?
Oh, yeah, he killed that Jerry Papa from what I read. He went to the luncheonette and just blew his brains off, blew his head off.
Jeez. Yeah, let's see. I'm going to play that ad, and then we'll see if any more questions come in.
Okay.
Let's see. Video file. I got to present it first. Let me see. Where is it?
I was curious, do other podcasts take questions?
What's that, like
this?
Oh, yeah, they take questions.
Okay.
A lot of them. Yeah, I guess you don't watch any of them, do you?
I don't watch any of them, no. Never watched a podcast in my life. Don't know anything about them.
Here we go.
Support our podcast. We got a few items that you can purchase. All of these items can be found in the video description below. The first one is Sal's book, The Sinatra Club. You can get this personally autographed by Sal. The next one in our hottest seller is the 1972 Sinatra Club playing cards. Back in Sal's Mafia days, he opened up his own social club named the Sinatra Club. Many mobsters would come to this club, even when there were all-out wars going on between different families. They would come to the Sinatra Club and play cards. Some of the mobsters that played with these cards were John Gotti, Dominic Cataldo, Tommy DeSimone, Foxy, Jimmy Burke, Willie Boy Johnson, Tony Roach, Henry Hill, Joe DeFiti, Danny Fatico, Gene Gotti, Peter Gotti, Joey Scopo, and many more. We're selling each one of these cards for $10 a piece. These cards are limited, we only got 1,000 of them. The next item is an autographed picture of Sal from his Mafia days. Another item is the Dinner with the Mobster card. You can get this autographed as well. This was an event that Sal had hosted in the past. We also got the Ubots production ticket from an event that Sal had hosted. This is also autographed. The last item we got to offer is Sal's book, The Sins of the Father. Again, you can find all these items in the video description below.
All right, let's see. Oh, shit, let me turn that off.
That's good.
Yeah, no, that is cool. I always like seeing that, man. I always play it at the end of all of our shows. Let's see.
Who's calling?
Oh, that was just a damn alarm. Because I'm going to be doing, I'll let people know, here in about an hour, I'm doing an interview with Louis, what's his last name? Ferrante. He was a Gambino associate.
Okay.
So I'm going to be doing an interview with him. He's got a pretty good redemption story.
Okay.
But yeah, my buddy Bert, OG Bert, he's in the chat today too, man. So thank you for joining in, man. I appreciate that. He's an old friend of mine.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm seeing if there's any more questions on here, but let's see. Lori says, Adrian and Sal, y'all should do a video in South Philly. Great Italian food there. Better than in NYC. Sal will admit that, she said.
I did appear in South Philly when we did the Inside the American Mafia. Michael Franzese and I spent the night at Luigi's restaurant, something in Luigi's, and it was very popular, and they had press there, and we ate. It was pretty popular restaurant where a lot of hits took place. So if Lori's from there, I've been there. One of these days we'll go back. Maybe we'll do a summer tour, and we'll go show up at some of these popular restaurants. So she probably knows about that restaurant I'm talking about.
Yeah, you could be a food critic.
Yeah.
At that, make a new show like that.
Yeah.
Jesse says you guys should come do a NYC mob tour. That'd be cool too. Go back to your old neighborhood.
Yeah, I'd have to walk around with a suit on.
He says, Sal, who did the best sense of humor with your crew? Who had the best?
Foxy had an interesting sense of humor. I was more gregarious and loquacious, and I was always talking a lot of nonsense, making people laugh. So, I mean, we had a lot of tension in those days, but it was comic relief that we, always made fun of certain people. It was interesting.
Lex says, thanks for answering my question, Sal. I've been following your interviews for years. You have a great story, or great stories.
Well, thank Lex.
Yeah, well.
We got more stories to do. We got some that I haven't told, and I was thinking about them, and maybe we'll do one a month. I got a couple of interesting adventures where I made a lot of money, and it was very secretive. So, I mean, I was supposed to share all of that 39 years ago, but, like I told the feds, it was a couple of things I forgot, and now it's coming back to me after all these years.
Yeah,
you
now
gotta have a sense of humor, man. There you go.
Yeah, well, I mean, if anybody hasn't seen our episode from yesterday, I posted, it's Sal going to or doing robberies, doing his first start doing robberies with these old time bank robbers, Joseph Della Mora and then Edward Privado. So all you got to do is just go to our YouTube page and
right.
You can go on there and you'll be able to see that. So, and then also I posted this week an interview I did with an ex-Gambino associate named Robert Borelli. He was deeply involved in the mob, and he eventually changed his life around and went to God. So check it out. But next Sunday, man, we'll be in California. So look out for that live. That's going to be awesome. In person live.
Well, thanks for all the chats, and thanks for all the little super chats, and keep those letter and cards coming in, guys. Tell your friends.
Yeah, please share our stuff around with anyone you think will enjoy it, because I mean, we've got a lot of good stories to cover. A lot of people seem to be interested, so we want to keep the momentum going so we can continue to grow. And
I want to move to the whimsical side of crime and how funny it could be. I mean, I just don't want to talk about anything that hurt people. So, I mean, people have comments all the time. So I can't change the past. I can do with today. I got a wonderful wife in my life, and she sort of shares everything with Adrian. We did meet a few months ago in Nebraska. Now we're going to catch up in LA and see what we can create. I hope you guys get to see some of that footage.
Yeah, it should be really awesome, whatever he seems to come up to. Oh, yeah, and Bubble's going to be out there, too. He'll be part of the live. We got to have him with us, man. Do it.
Yeah, he'll be there.
He said, see you guys next week. Hell yeah, we will, man. All right, well, everyone take care, and we'll see everyone next week. And, if you got any questions, comments, please feel free to. You want to go on our Patreon, subscribe. We've been getting more people on there. All you got to do is go to the link on here, and you can ask Sal as many questions you want, text him back and forth. So, all right, we'll see everyone next week.
All right. Later.